Hello, my name is Julian. I'm one of the developers for Blue Triangle, and I'm going to go over our new open source product, SeaSP. SeaSP is a content security policy manager that automates manual processes of building a good CSP for your site. We've decided to make this product because we believe that all websites on the net should be safe and secure from attacks like MageCart. So the first thing we're going to go over is how to activate the plugin. You activate the plugin just like any other plugin that you would on WordPress by clicking Activate. After you activate the plugin, you're going to see a new menu item, the Blue Triangle CSP menu. The first page is our dashboard. In our dashboard, you can read various blogs about CSPs, and we'll update it periodically with new relevant articles. You can also view more blogs and webinars on our website, www.bluetriangle.com. As you can see, we have an ad here to upgrade your CSP to the paid version. Right now, we'll go over what the Community Edition does. The next page is the current violations page. Right now, there's no violations because no pages have been visited on the site. When you first install the plugin, you're going to want to install it on a non-production environment with a non-blocking CSP. In general settings, you can set the CSP to report only or to blocking mode. When you set it to blocking mode, it'll block all the content on the site. You don't want this right now, as you just want to collect the errors so that you can create your CSP. So we'll turn it back to report only. The next page is the directive settings. Every CSP has various directives that allow content through for different types of content. The main directive is default source. This is the fallback directive just in case you didn't define any of these directives below. Each of these general settings has a description next to it so that you know what you're turning on and off. We'll go over this a little later. The last page is the Help Center. The Help Center is an overview of what the plugin does and a review of how to use it. I'll also later on create a link to this video for reference. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is visit the home page of your site. You're going to want to click Inspect, and you can see the CSP in action. As you can see, there's 157 errors, but not to worry. These errors are actually report-only CSP violation errors. These errors are collected by the plugin so that you can set up your CSP. Let's go head over to the plugin again. Then you'll click Current Violations. And here you can see all the domains that violated your CSP. As you can see, there's not 157 of them because these domains had multiple violations. HubSpot has a violation for Connect Source. And HubSpot also has a violation for Image Source. If you don't know what these are, you can click the buttons on them and it gives you a definition of what content source is. In this case, restricts the URLs which can be loaded using script interfaces. An image source is self-explanatory, but just in case, it specifies valid sources of images and favicons. What you're going to want to do on this page is review each domain, look at the directive, and make sure that this domain is allowed to serve up this type of content. So let's take a look at Content Squared. You have to make sure that this domain is spelled correctly and that it's from a trusted source. In our enterprise product, you can tell this very easily because we've created a library that tells you the percentage of sites that have this service installed. But in the case of our Community Edition, we advise you just to paste this URL into your web browser and make sure it's from a trusted source. Make sure that this domain is spelled correctly And if it is, and you want it to be able to serve up content sources, then you're going to want to approve it. Now let's say Content Squared has a subdomain that also wants to serve up content source. Then you're going to want to click this button as well. What this does is it puts in a star dot domain inside your CSP so that Content Squared can now serve up content source content. The way you can review this is to go over the general settings, and as you can see, here's a star dot for the contentsquared.net and a content source directive. It also added contentsquared.net. If we head back over to our home page and do a hard refresh, you can see that there's actually more violations than originally. This is because of piggyback tags. We've now allowed Content Squared through, but then Content Squared started loading its own content that has been violating our content security policy. So now we can go over to our current violations, and we can see that our list has grown. So we're going to fast forward a little bit and enable all these just to see what happens. I know all these are trusted sites because I've been through them. On your own site, you're going to want to go through these very carefully and make sure that the directive that is being violated by this domain, you want to make sure that Blue Triangle is allowed to serve up images. Now, let's take a look and see how this affected the violations on our site. Let's go over to our home page again and do a hard refresh. As you can see, there's significantly less violations, but still violations nonetheless. This is because a lot of our content has inline scripts or styles. The way to handle this in our paid version is you can actually get this hash and paste it into your content security policy. And this will allow this inline script. What this hash is a SHA-256 encoded string of the inline code that's in your site. So what that tells the content security policy is to allow that piece of code. Because we're talking about the community edition, the only choice is to look in your script source element directive and allow inline scripts. The way you do that is you go over to the directive settings. We're going to want to look for script source element, and we're going to want to enable unsafe inline. If you don't know what unsafe inline is, you can hover over and give you the description. It allows the use of inline sources such as inline script elements, JavaScript, URLs, inline event handlers, and inline style elements. When you click this on, it'll allow inline scripts for script source elements. Let's go ahead and do a hard refresh, and we shouldn't see that error anymore. You're going to want to do this for each of these directives, either by adding the hashes or by allowing for each directive inline scripts. So in this case, style source element, we're going to want to go to style source element, and we're going to want to allow unsafe inline. Let's take a look at the next error. This is style source attribute. Again, you're going to either want to add this hash or allow inline scripts for style source attributes. So we'll go to style source attributes and click unsafe inline. Now we're only down to 8. These next ones are a little bit different. As you can see, it's trying to load a data application font, and it's violating our font source directive. What we're going to want to do and let these by is to go over to our font source directive and allow data. This is a very dangerous practice. You're only going to want to do this if you trust the domains that are going through your site. Because we've already allowed all of the list of our domains, this should be relatively safe to do. So let's go over to our font source directive and allow data. As you can see, when you hover over, it gives you the warning. You can also specify data schemes not recommended. Data allows data URIs to be used as a content source. This is insecure. An attacker can inject arbitrary data. Use these sparingly. So if you do have fonts that are loading over the internet, then what I would advise you to do is either install the fonts locally and serve them up from your own server, or if they're from a trusted site, then just allow data. Now we're down to 6 errors. This is similar to the last error. It's data for images, however. This is asking if we want to allow data URIs for images. In this case, we do. So we'll want to go over to our image source and allow data. We'll go ahead and do another hard refresh. We're down to 5 errors. This next one is a blob directive. It's trying to load a blob URI and it's violating our worker source. This is typical for workers to use blobs. So what I recommend you do is go ahead and enable blobs for worker sources. And now we're down to just our G-tag JavaScript error, which has been there since our start. Now we have a working SeaSP, and what we're going to want to do next is enable blocking mode. To do that, you'll want to go over to General Settings. You'll review this quickly, and then click the report only to blocking. What this does is it changes the SeaSP to blocking mode. Now that we've changed our SeaSP to blocking mode, it's now protecting our site. As you can see, a piggyback tag from one of our scripts has tried to load its stat.js function that is trying to run an unsafe eval. We don't want this, and neither do you. This unsafe eval could load malicious groups onto our site, and our SeaSP did its job. Thank you for listening to this video.